You're just the housemaid here at the mansion, Vanessa sneered. You should know your place. You shouldn't be drawing attention to yourself. Clara, the older housekeeper, didn't respond immediately. She let Vanessa say whatever she wanted. You shouldn't be defending your daughter, especially not in front of me, particularly when you're just the help here, Vanessa added, watching Clara place coffee cups on a tray. After all the years Clara had held her temper, this time her hand gripped the tray's handle tightly. She took a deep breath and responded, Yes, I'm just the housekeeper here, but that doesn't mean I'll just accept your insults or let you slander me, and especially my only daughter. No matter how much higher you think you are, you still don't have the right to trample us like this. Vanessa rolled her eyes and smirked. The maid's got some fight now. Clara turned to face her. It's better if I just leave. I'll finish this once you're gone. But before Clara could take a step, Vanessa grabbed one of the steaming cups of coffee, prepared earlier by another housekeeper, and without warning poured it on Clara's arm. Ah! Clara cried out, stumbling back while clutching her scalded arm. Her skin turned red, blistering instantly from the heat. The pain was so intense she couldn't move. Her fingers trembled as she fought to hold back tears. That's what you deserve, Vanessa whispered coldly. A hot reminder of your place here in the mansion. Unfortunately for Vanessa, they weren't alone in the kitchen. Vanessa! Came the furious voice of Ethan. He had seen everything, the way she poured the coffee, the look of pain on Clara's face. He had heard it all. Vanessa's face went pale. What the hell are you doing, Vanessa? Why would you do that? He shouted. How could you hurt Clara like that? Vanessa's eyes widened. She immediately tried to explain. Babe, let me explain. Explain what? Ethan cut her off. Ethan Caldwell, youngest son of the wealthiest family in Elton County and heir to Caldwell Corporation, was often described as the picture of perfection, handsome, wealthy, intelligent, kind, hard-working, tall, generous, and considerate. Ethan had it all, and it was no surprise that Sophie Larson fell for him the moment she first laid eyes on him. But no matter how deep her admiration, Sophie knew in her heart she didn't belong in Ethan's world. Their lives were miles apart. To her, Ethan was like the North Star distant, brilliant and untouchable. She was just one among many, silently admiring him from the dark. She often dreamed of an impossible miracle that the brightest star would one day fall from the sky, notice her, and make all her dreams come true. But of course, that was just a fantasy. Who'd even want to date you, Sophie? You've turned down every single guy who's tried to ask you out, teased Lily, Sophie's best friend and co-worker. You wouldn't know him, Sophie replied simply, even though Lily actually did know who she was talking about. Oh, come on. We've been best friends forever, and I still don't know who this mystery guy is. If I tell you, you'll just laugh, Sophie said with a shy chuckle. I wonder who it could be. Lily mused aloud, thinking hard. Just then, their boss, Ethan Caldwell, passed by with his assistant, who was reviewing something on an iPad, probably his daily schedule. Ethan, meanwhile, gave brief nods and polite smiles to the employees who greeted him. He is so gorgeous, Lily whispered dreamily. If I were his girlfriend, I'd feel like the luckiest woman on earth. Sophie simply nodded, her gaze still following Ethan. He really was handsome. No matter how much time passed, her admiration for him never faded. If anything, it only grew stronger. She suddenly remembered the first time she met him, the day her heart was quietly captured. Sophie was just 10 years old, sitting on a creaky chair outside the small rental home she and her mother had just moved into. In her hand was a rose she had made from paper. She had spent all morning thinking about whether she should finally ask her mom something she had been holding back. It had been almost 2 weeks since she arrived in Elton. She had come from a small rural town in South Carolina. Her mom had brought her there so she could study in the city and stay close to her instead of being left with her aunts. But during those 2 weeks, she hadn't been anywhere except the 4 corners of their house, and more than anything, she wanted to visit the mansion where her mom worked the Caldwell mansion. Her mother had been a housekeeper there for years. Sophie had never seen her mother's employers, nor the house itself, which her mother always described as beautiful and massive, like a palace. Finally, Sophie gathered the courage. She stood up and walked over to her mother, who was busy arranging groceries. "Mom, can I come with you to the mansion tomorrow?" she asked softly, her voice laced with hesitation. Her mother paused and looked at her, clearly torn. She seemed unsure whether it was right to say yes. "Please, Mom, I'll behave. I won't cause any trouble. I promise." It took a long moment before her mother sighed and finally nodded. "All right, but on one condition," she said seriously. Sophie smiled, barely containing her excitement. "What is it?" "You'll stay close to me the whole time. If I say we're leaving, we leave. No questions." "Okay." Sophie nodded quickly. "Yes, Mom, I promise." "You really are excited, huh?" "I am, Mom. I've always wanted to see that mansion you keep telling me about. It's like I'm on vacation." Her mother laughed. "Well then, tomorrow you'll finally see it." Sophie rushed back inside the house, filled with joy and excitement. Finally, her dream of stepping inside the Caldwell mansion was coming true, a place she had only heard about in her mother's stories. Sophie was up early the next day. She had barely slept the night before because of the excitement. She got herself ready immediately, wearing her best outfit and neatly tying her hair. When she stepped out of their bedroom, she saw her mother already busy preparing what they needed to bring. "Mom, is there anything I can help with?" she asked, her voice full of energy. Her mother turned to her and smiled slightly. "Wow, you're up early. Here, carry this bag for me." Sophie didn't complain. She slung the bag over her shoulder and helped with the rest of the preparations. Moments later, they were riding the company van on the way to the mansion. As soon as they got out in front of the large gates, Sophie couldn't help but gape at the beauty of the place. "Wow," she whispered, clinging to her mother's arm. "It's beautiful." Her mother smiled. "Yes, sweetie, that's the Caldwell mansion." "You were right, Mom. It really does look like a palace. Wait until we get inside. It's even more beautiful." As they walked through the property, her mother gave a gentle reminder. "Sophie, remember to be careful here, okay? Everything in this mansion is expensive. One wrong move, and you could break something that's worth more than our lives." Sophie swallowed hard and nodded. "Yes, Mom. I promise I'll be careful." As they stepped inside, her eyes grew even wider with amazement. Her mother had been right. The inside was even more magnificent. In the grand living room were Mr. and Mrs. Caldwell. Mrs. Caldwell, Elena Caldwell, looked no older than 30, despite being in her 50s. She had smooth skin, an elegant presence, and gentle movements. Beside her sat Mr. Victor Caldwell, a dignified man who didn't seem to age. He was handsome, like a model from a magazine. Sophie's mom approached them with a respectful bow, then placed a hand on Sophie's arm to guide her to stand beside her. Mrs. Elena smiled. "So, this is your daughter, Clara?" "Yes, ma'am," her mother replied with a faint smile. "This is Sophie Larson, my only child." Mrs. Elena stepped closer and looked her over from head to toe. She nodded. "She's a lovely young lady." Sophie lowered her gaze in embarrassment. She found them intimidating, even though Mrs. Elena was smiling warmly. "She's grown up so much, Clara. I remember seeing her photo on your phone years ago. She was so young then." "Yes, ma'am. By God's grace, she's grown up well." Mrs. Elena smiled even more and turned back to Sophie. "Well, Sophie, we're happy to have you here. Feel at home, okay? If you want a snack, just tell the cook. They'll prepare something nice for you." "Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much," Sophie stammered. "Don't be nervous, sweetheart," Mr. Victor added playfully. "We're not vampires. You don't need to be scared of us." "Yes, sir," Sophie stuttered more, causing the couple to exchange amused glances. When her mother started working again, Sophie asked how she could help. Her mother told her to water the plants in the garden, so she went straight to it. As she began watering, she didn't notice she was getting lost in the beauty of the surroundings until a voice startled her from behind. "Hey, be careful there." She quickly turned toward the voice, unintentionally pointing the hose directly at the person behind her, soaking him in the process. Hey, miss, I'm not a plant," the guy said, stepping back as water drenched his clothes. "I'm so sorry," Sophie exclaimed, fumbling to shut the hose off. She panicked and struggled to turn it off properly. The young man was clearly dressed to go out. Now his outfit was soaked and ruined. Sophie, mortified, couldn't even meet his eyes. "I really didn't mean to, sir. I was just surprised. I know it's my fault. I'm very, very sorry." "That's all right," the man replied, scratching his head with a sigh. "I guess it's just one of those days." "Are you a new maid here?" he asked, curious. No, sir. I just came with my mom," she answered shyly. "I see. Who's your mom?" "Clara Larson, sir." His brow lifted slightly, as though surprised. "So, you're the daughter she always talks about," he said. Sophie blinked in confusion. "What do you mean, sir?" "Well, I know your mother. She's been working here for a long time. She's like family to us, actually. She raised me like I was her own son." "Huh?" Sophie asked, confused. "I'm Ethan Caldwell," he said, extending his hand toward her. Sophie's eyes widened. So this was her mother's ward, Ethan Caldwell, the son of the Caldwell couple. Her mother had often talked about watching over Ethan back when Sophie was still in the province. She used to feel jealous of him because her mother spent more time caring for Ethan than for her. She hadn't expected him to be so tall. Sophie had thought they were only 5 years apart. "You're Ethan Caldwell?" she asked, still in disbelief. "You're the one Mom used to take care of?" "Yes, that's me," Ethan replied. "I didn't know you were already in Elton. I thought you were still in the province. Mom brought me here so I could study this coming school year," she explained a bit bashfully. "So, you're here to study now? That's good. You won't be far from your mom anymore. Elton's a completely different world compared to the countryside, but I'm sure you'll get used to it." "I'm trying to adjust little by little." He smiled warmly. "Don't worry, you'll do just fine. Just ask for help if you need it. Just maybe don't hose me again, okay?" he joked lightly. Sophie's cheeks turned red. "I'm really sorry again, sir. I must have been deep in thought and didn't notice you." He rubbed the back of his neck and nodded. "Yeah, looked like you were thinking real hard. I really didn't mean to soak you," she said, eyes still cast down. "It's okay. I'm just a little wet, that's all," Ethan replied with a calm smile, glancing around as if recalling something. "Well, I should get going. Don't worry about anything, all right?" Sophie nodded as Ethan turned and walked away. That was their first meeting. From that day forward, Sophie couldn't help the admiration that steadily grew in her heart. But as time went on, she reminded herself that her feelings had limits, limits defined by the very different worlds they belonged to. She knew she couldn't hope for Ethan to feel the same. There were women far more suited to him, like Vanessa, his best friend since childhood, who grew up in the United States and had clearly long harbored deep feelings for him. Because of this, Sophie kept her emotions tightly guarded, choosing to stay in the background, never wishing to be noticed. Instead, she focused on her dreams for her and her mother. Years passed, and Sophie eventually graduated from college. The Caldwell family offered her a job at Caldwell Group, their company, and Ethan Caldwell became her boss. "She's here," one of the employees whispered. "Yeah, I saw her come in earlier." "She came in with Mr. Ethan, holding onto his arm," another replied. "Do you think it's true that they're dating?" "I think so. They seem so much closer now," another chimed in, practically swooning. "They're such a good match, so beautiful and handsome together. I totally ship them. Power couple material." Sophie remained silent while doing her work, listening to the murmurs around her. When Sophie got home that evening, her mother was in the kitchen preparing dinner. Sophie quietly sat at the table, and helped her mother slice vegetables. "Are things busy at the mansion lately?" she asked, as she tore apart a head of cabbage. "Yes, especially when Miss Vanessa visits," Clara replied. Sophie looked at her mother. "Is she really Mr. Ethan's girlfriend?" "Yes, they started dating just about a month ago. Everyone's happy for them. They say Mr. Ethan has finally found someone to love. Miss Vanessa is a kind woman, and they're a perfect match. His parents are thrilled." Sophie smiled and nodded. "That's good to hear, Mom. Oh, by the way, people at the store have been talking about you." "About me?" Sophie asked, confused. "They said the mayor's son tried to court you, but you turned him down. You told him you weren't ready for anything like that." "Oh, that. He wasn't really courting me. He just asked if he had a chance, and I said no." Her mother chuckled. "But why? The mayor's son is good-looking and kind." "I just didn't feel like it," she replied. "That's good. Don't rush into a relationship. Anything rushed never ends well." "For you and Dad only, right?" she teased gently. "Something like that." At work, everything was normal. Employees chatted while doing their tasks. Sophie, as always, stayed focused. She blocked out the keyboard tapping and soft conversations around her. Then, she noticed a shadow at the edge of her desk. It was Mark, the team leader from another department, holding a bouquet of flowers. "Hi, Sophie," he greeted, a bit nervously. "Sir, do you need something from me?" she asked politely. She could feel her coworkers' eyes on them, especially when Mark extended the bouquet toward her. Some were whispering, "Is this another confession?" It wasn't the first time someone had expressed interest in Sophie. "What's this for, sir?" she asked, not taking the flowers right away. "I know this is sudden, but I like you, and I was wondering if I could start courting you." Sophie's eyes widened. She didn't expect a department leader to confess. Usually, it was regular employees. "Ah, sir." But before she could finish, she sensed someone behind Mark. Slowly, she looked over his shoulder and saw Ethan Caldwell standing there, holding a white folder. His expression was unreadable, but his gaze was ice cold. He wasn't looking at Mark. He was looking straight at her. "What's happening here?" Ethan asked coolly. Mark turned and stammered. "Nothing, sir. I was just giving flowers to Sophie. No big deal." Ethan's frown deepened. After a brief pause, he handed the folder to Mark. "Take these documents to the conference room now." Mark scratched the back of his neck, clearly embarrassed. "Yes, sir, right away." He quickly obeyed, still holding the flowers Sophie hadn't accepted. Sophie remained frozen, standing face to face with her boss. Before she could say anything to apologize or explain, Ethan turned and walked away. She stood there in shock, eyes following his retreating figure. "Girl," Lily whispered, snapping Sophie back to reality. She leaned over and spoke in a low voice. "What just happened?" Sophie looked at her, shook her head, and replied, "I don't know." Lily frowned. "He looked mad, girl, like really mad. Did you see his face? It was like a storm was brewing. Even Mark looked terrified, stammering and pale." "Maybe he just had a fight with his girlfriend," Lily added, sighing. "Too bad. That could have been another confession to turn down. Mark totally had no chance." "Maybe," Sophie answered softly, forcing a small smile. Lily grinned. "But girl, the way Sir Ethan looked at you, that was intense. I felt weak, just watching." Sophie didn't respond. She simply went back to work, but inside, questions were spiraling through her mind. In another corner of the building, Ethan's secretary asked a colleague, "What's going on over there? Why are people crowding again?" Someone asked Miss Sophie out again. "The HR rep," Greg said with a laugh. "Again? How many times this week?" "Second time," Greg replied, shaking his head. "At this rate, everyone in her department's going to try, even the married ones. Has anyone actually succeeded?" "Nope, not a single one." Sophie turns them all down. She's way too focused on her work. "Good," Greg said. heading toward Ethan's office to deliver the latest gossip. Inside the office, Vanessa was seated comfortably on the long couch. Greg walked over to Ethan's desk with a stack of folders and a mischievous smile. "Sir," he began as he placed the documents on the table, "something happened again in Sophie's department." "What now?" Ethan asked, looking up. "Well, someone confessed to her again, with flowers and everything, but she turned him down, like always." Ethan raised an eyebrow and chuckled faintly. "Again? I caught Mark trying just the other day. It happens a lot, sir. She's very popular, but no one ever succeeds. Sophie's always polite but firm." Vanessa, who had been listening, cut in. "Maybe she's becoming a distraction in the workplace." "She's actually very professional, ma'am," Greg replied. "Even after rejecting someone, she goes right back to work like nothing happened." "But don't you think it's inappropriate?" Vanessa said, her tone sharper now. "If men keep falling for her, doesn't that say something about how she carries herself?" Ethan turned to Vanessa. "You're overthinking. Sophie's not doing anything wrong. It's not her fault her coworkers like her. Still, maybe she should be reassigned or something to avoid further issues." Ethan didn't respond immediately. Greg gave a small sigh and excused himself. "I'll leave the files here, sir. Let me know if you need anything." Ethan nodded silently. Once Greg left, the office fell quiet. Ethan sat deep in thought. Vanessa spoke again. "What are you thinking, Ethan?" "Nothing," he replied. "You're thinking about that employee again, aren't you? The one who keeps causing all this distraction?" Ethan didn't answer. "Why don't you just do what I suggested?" Vanessa pushed. "Fire her." "I can't," Ethan said flatly. "It was my parents who brought her into the company." "Then let me talk to her." "No, don't go near her," Ethan said more firmly this time. Vanessa let out a long sigh and shook her head. Ethan returned to his work in silence. One day, as Sophie returned home from work, her mother greeted her in the kitchen. "Sweetheart, you're coming with me to the mansion tomorrow," Clara said while arranging vegetables on the table. "Mr. and Mrs. Caldwell want to see you again." Sophie frowned. "Me? Why?" "I don't know. Elena just said to bring you. Maybe they just want to talk." "I hope I didn't do anything wrong, Mom," Sophie said nervously. "Why would they call for me out of nowhere?" "I'm sure it's nothing bad, honey. Maybe they just miss you. It's been a while since you last visited the mansion." The next day, they left early. Sophie sat quietly in the car, her heart pounding. She didn't understand why she was suddenly summoned, but a part of her was excited because it meant seeing the man who had quietly lived in her heart for so long. The last time she saw Ethan wearing casual clothes was nearly 2 years ago, during her last visit to the mansion. Since then, she had become so busy after graduating. She also avoided visiting because seeing him too often only deepened her feelings. When they arrived, the mansion looked even more majestic than she remembered. She recalled how stunned she had been the first time she entered it. It had since been renovated to look more modern, perfectly fitting for someone like Ethan, who to her resembled a prince. "I'm nervous, Mom," she said softly. "Don't be. I'm sure they're not angry with you." "I hope so." Before they could enter, Vanessa appeared in the hallway, wearing a designer dress that suited her like a celebrity. When their eyes met, she gave Sophie a cold, cutting smile. "What are you doing here?" Vanessa asked with a raised eyebrow, eyeing her from head to toe like she didn't belong. "I just came with my mom," Sophie answered respectfully. Vanessa's eyes narrowed as she glanced at Clara. "So, she's your mom?" she said with a sneer. "Interesting." Vanessa had never known Clara was Sophie's mother, mostly because she never cared enough to ask. But lately, Vanessa had grown more bothered by Sophie's presence, though she couldn't explain why. "I didn't know she was your mom, Sophie. No wonder you managed to get into Caldwell Group. You've got connections here in the mansion." Sophie didn't reply, and Vanessa continued, smirking, looking her up and down like a queen inspecting a beggar. "Come on, honey. They're waiting for us," Clara said, stepping in. "Miss Vanessa, we'll be heading in now." "Sure, Clara," Vanessa said, clearly mocking. Inside, Elena greeted them warmly. "Oh, Sophie," she said cheerfully, clearly happy to see her. "It's been a while. You haven't visited us in so long." Sophie smiled politely and bowed her head. "I've been busy with work, ma'am. I'm sorry I haven't been able to visit." Elena took her hand and smiled. "That's all right. What matters is that you're here now. Mom said you wanted to see me." "Yes, dear. I just wanted to catch up. It's been so long." Sophie looked over to Victor. "Did I do something wrong, sir?" "No, of course not," Elena answered quickly. "I just really wanted to see you again." Sophie gave an awkward smile. "I thought I might have done something wrong. I got nervous." "Did we scare you?" "I'm sorry if we did." Moments later, Ethan came downstairs. As Sophie had hoped, he was dressed casually, his hair slightly tousled, so different from how he looked at the office, yet perfectly fitting. "Babe, you're finally awake," Vanessa said as she immediately walked over and clung to him. "Yeah," he replied, then looked towards Sophie. Elena noticed the curious look in Ethan's eyes and quickly explained. "I invited Sophie for dinner. It's been a long time since she's been here." They all sat down together in the elegant dining room. The table was filled with delicious food, the atmosphere light and festive. Directly across from Sophie sat Ethan and Vanessa, whispering and laughing with each other, lost in their own world. Sophie couldn't bring herself to look their way. Her heart thudded painfully, as if she were sitting between two entirely different worlds. Her mother sat beside her, happily chatting with Victor. "So, Sophie, is your job hard?" Victor asked, as he calmly poured himself a drink. "Not really, sir," she answered. "Let us know if anything gets difficult, okay?" "I don't think Sophie has any trouble," Elena cut in, smiling at her. "She's smart and hard-working. Didn't Ethan say she always excels at work?" Sophie blushed and smiled. "Thank you, ma'am." She caught Ethan looking at her. Sophie quickly looked away, but before she could take another bite, Elena spoke again, this time teasingly. "I heard you've been rejecting quite a number of suitors lately, Sophie. Why is that?" Sophie froze. The room suddenly felt silent. Even her mother stopped mid-conversation. She could feel all eyes on her, including Ethan's. She forced a smile. "I just want to focus on work, ma'am. I don't really have time for that kind of thing." I see," Elena said with a grin. "That's admirable. You're right. It's hard to focus on your work if you're caught up with a boyfriend, so it's better you didn't give any of them a chance. They'd only be a distraction." Sophie smiled and nodded. "Yes, ma'am. I agree." Still, as the conversation continued, Sophie couldn't help but notice Ethan's gaze lingering on her. She wasn't sure what to make of it. Was it anger, confusion, concern? The dinner went on. The Caldwell family talked animatedly with Clara and Sophie. The food was delicious, the conversation warm, but to Sophie, the air felt heavier with every passing moment. Then Elena shifted the conversation again, this time toward Ethan and Vanessa. "So, when are the two of you finally getting married?" she asked playfully. "Ethan, when are you planning to propose to Vanessa?" Sophie stared at her plate, forcing herself not to flinch or show any emotion. Ethan took a sip from his drink before replying. "We're still finalizing some things, Mom, but we've talked about it." "Oh, that's lovely," Victor chimed in, nodding. "It's about time. You've been close friends for so long, even if you just got together last month." Vanessa beamed with confidence. "Yes, Uncle. We're just waiting for the right moment, of course, with the family's blessing." Elena smiled brightly. "You already have it. We've always seen you as part of this family." Ethan and Vanessa exchanged a glance and smiled at each other. Meanwhile, Sophie remained silent. She felt like she couldn't breathe, listening to every word exchanged. Her hands were clenched beneath the table. Then Elena turned back to Sophie. "What about you, dear? Any plans of settling down soon?" Sophie forced another smile and shook her head. "Not yet, ma'am. I'm not really thinking about that right now. I want to focus on my career and helping my mom." Very wise, Victor remarked. You're still young. You've got plenty of time to figure that out. Exactly, Vanessa added, placing a hand on Ethan's arm. And who knows, maybe someday you'll meet someone who belongs in your world. Clara frowned at that comment, but said nothing. Sophie, on the other hand, simply smiled tightly. I guess so. After dinner, Sophie asked her mom if she could step out for some fresh air since the Caldwells were still occupied. Clara agreed but reminded her to return quickly. Sophie walked straight to the mansion's garden, the same place she had first met Ethan. The cool breeze rustled the leaves, and she closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. But she opened them quickly when she heard a familiar, sharp voice. I knew I'd find you here. She turned and saw Vanessa standing with her arms crossed, one eyebrow raised, eyes scanning her like a queen about to scold a servant. Ma'am, Vanessa, Sophie said, trying to remain calm despite the tension. Did you need something from me? Cut the act, Vanessa said, stepping forward. You know exactly what this is about. Sophie stayed silent, waiting. You like him. Don't deny it. Vanessa rolled her eyes. Please, Sophie, stop pretending. It's obvious. The way you look at him, the way you get so quiet when we're together. You want my boyfriend. Sophie swallowed hard, but didn't answer. She knew it was true, and that scared her more than anything. I respect both of you. I would never. Oh, please, Vanessa interrupted with a scoff. You think I don't see it? You look at him like he's the sun in your sky. It's pathetic. Sophie said nothing. You probably wish he'd notice you too. I bet you pray for it every night. But don't get your hopes up. I know where I stand, ma'am, Sophie said quietly. Vanessa smirked and tilted her head. Good, because soon he's going to propose to me. I'll be the one he marries. Sophie fell silent, her heart twisting like it had been slapped with the truth. Yes, he's just waiting for the right moment, and when it comes, my answer will be yes. Ethan loves me. Everyone knows that. So, whatever silly feelings you're hiding, keep them to yourself. Bury them, because I'm telling you now, there's no hope. She stepped closer, as if to emphasize the distance between them. You're just the daughter of a maid. You don't belong in our world. You're nothing but a shadow in a house full of light. Don't embarrass yourself by dreaming beyond your place. Sophie pressed her lips together and said nothing. The words pierced her deeply, but she held herself steady. Enjoy your little job, Vanessa added as she turned away. That's all you'll ever have. Ever since Vanessa found out that Clara was Sophie's mother, her attitude toward the older woman had changed. The respect she once feigned had disappeared. Clara wasn't oblivious. She could feel it. Vanessa always seemed to be hovering, watching, issuing constant commands. Clara, go get me some cold water from the kitchen, Vanessa ordered one day. Yes, ma'am, Clara replied without hesitation and quickly made her way to the kitchen. But by the time Clara returned with the water, Vanessa was no longer in the living room. Clara had to look for her. I'm not thirsty anymore. Just return it to the kitchen, Vanessa said flatly. And when you get back, come upstairs. I have something else for you to do. Clara nodded and quietly did as she was told. She put the glass back in the kitchen and went upstairs to Ethan's room, where Vanessa was waiting. Organize my jewelry in the cabinet. Don't forget my necklace. Make sure everything's accounted for. Those are important to megifts from Ethan. Yes, ma'am. I'll take care of it right away, Clara answered. She moved quickly to finish the task. She still had a lot to do downstairs, but Vanessa always had more orders for her. Where Vanessa used to visit only once a week, she now came more often and sometimes even stayed overnight. And every time she was at the mansion, it felt like Clara was the only one she saw. Clara! Vanessa called again, irritation in her voice. Please clean my heels. There's dirt on them again. I already told you I want this place spotless when I'm here. Clara knelt and began wiping Vanessa's heels in silence. Take your time, Vanessa said with a smirk. I need them spotless, okay? Clara didn't respond. She kept cleaning, feeling Vanessa's eyes on her, savoring every second of her submission. Like mother, like daughter, Vanessa sneered. You're both where you belong down low. I wonder if your daughter got her flirtiness from you. Are you just as delusional as she is? Still, Clara didn't answer. She let Vanessa say what she wanted, but that only frustrated Vanessa more. She wanted a reaction. By the way, Vanessa continued casually, tell Sophie to stop being so flirtatious with the men at work. I see her eyeing every single one of them, even the married ones. She paused, dramatically. I mean, it's obvious she only gets all that attention because she's throwing herself at them. Clara remained focused on her task. Vanessa rolled her eyes in irritation. Sophie's behavior is becoming a problem. It's distracting other employees, and honestly, even I'm getting annoyed by how shameless and trashy she is. She went on, her voice dripping with contempt. Ethan won't fire her, of course, only because your precious employers, his parents, are the ones who got her the job. He can't touch her. Clara's hands began to tremble, but still, she said nothing. Her eyes, however, burned with restrained fury. Honestly, Vanessa added with mock sincerity, Sophie's behavior shouldn't be tolerated, but Ethan's too soft, probably because of you. It's really such a shame. She continued wiping her shoes in silence, but her heart was boiling. Tell her to tone it down, Vanessa said before walking out. It won't be long before Ethan finally does something about it, and when that happens, I'll be the first to cheer. The house was quiet when Sophie arrived home. Her footsteps echoed across the hardwood floor. A sense of unease sat heavily on her chest. Something didn't feel right. As she approached the living room, fear slowly crept into her heart. In the center of the room sat her mother, Clara, on an antique chair. Her head was lowered, but her hands gripped the armrests tightly. When she heard Sophie's footsteps, she slowly looked up. Her eyes were sharp, filled with anger and bitterness. You're just getting home now? She said coldly, her voice trembling not from fatigue but from rage. Is something wrong, Mom? Sophie asked, startled by the icy tone. Is there something you need to explain to me? Clara asked, standing and stepping toward her daughter. Is there something you've been hiding? Are you doing something inappropriate at the Caldwell Company? What? What? Sophie stammered, confused. What do you mean, Mom? Your shamelessness at work. That's what I'm talking about, Clara snapped. What? Sophie gasped. Her mother's expression grew even darker as she stepped closer. The flirting, the gossip, the men chasing after you. Vanessa told me everything. Sophie clutched the strap of her bag. It's not true. I haven't done anything wrong. Then why are even the employees complaining? Why are you the subject of every whisper in that office, huh? Sophie's eyes widened. I swear I'm not doing anything wrong. I don't know why Vanessa is saying these things, but she's lying. I'm not like that. And I'm supposed to believe you over Vanessa? A loud slap broke through the air. Sophie froze, her cheek burning with pain. She clutched it instinctively as she stepped back in shock. She couldn't believe it. That was the first time her mother had ever hit her. She was too stunned to speak. I didn't raise you to be like this, Sophie, Clara shouted, her voice shaking. I raised you right, with dignity, and now you throw away our name over something so shameful. Tears welled in Sophie's eyes. She couldn't believe her mother was choosing to believe someone else over her. Mom, it's me. I'm your daughter. Why would you believe someone else over me? But it was as if Clara couldn't hear her anymore. She stared at Sophie, but the love in her eyes had vanished. Only anger, doubt, and disappointment remained. Get out of my sight, Clara said, her voice low and firm. It was as if Sophie had been doused in ice. She stood frozen, unable to move. But when she saw that the fury in her mother's eyes hadn't faded, she slowly turned and walked away, carrying the weight of her mother's disbelief. As she closed the door to her room, the physical pain in her cheek was nothing compared to the sting left by her mother's words. The door shut with a soft click, and all of Sophie's emotions came crashing down. She dropped to the bed, tossed her bag aside, and finally let the sobs escape her chest. "Why?" she whispered between hiccups. "Why does she believe someone else so easily? Doesn't she trust me at all?" She cried and cried, wondering what she had done to deserve this, why her own mother would think so little of her. She stayed, curled up for what felt like forever, face buried in her hands, tears soaking her palms. Minutes passed slowly. The bedroom door creaked open. Soft footsteps crossed the floor. Clara stood at the doorway, holding a handkerchief. Her face was lined not with anger now, but exhaustion, emotional exhaustion. There were faint traces of tears near her eyes. "Sophie, sweetheart," she said softly. Sophie looked up, still shaken. Her expression reflected all the hurt, confusion, and betrayal she felt. Clara walked over and sat on the edge of the bed, only inches from her daughter. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, voice trembling. "I shouldn't have said those things. I shouldn't have slapped you." Sophie looked down and cried again, though not like before. This time, the tears flowed silently. "I don't know what came over me. I was scared. I didn't want people to think I raised you wrong, that all my sacrifices were wasted." Sophie looked up, voice barely a whisper. "Mom, what Vanessa said, it's not true. She's spreading lies because she thinks I like Mr. Ethan, but none of it's real. I'm not flirting with anyone. From the start, she's disliked me. I don't even know why, and now that she sees Ethan being kind to me, she's convinced something's going on." Clara listened, the guilt on her face deepening. Slowly, she reached out and took Sophie's hand, squeezing it tightly. "Please forgive me, sweetheart. I should have asked you first. I should have trusted you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Sophie broke down again, but this time in her mother's arms. They held each other tight and tearful. In that moment, Sophie felt that despite the hurt, her mother was still her home, a place of comfort that could still offer forgiveness and love. "I won't let anyone hurt you again," Clara whispered. "If Vanessa is trying to ruin your name, we won't let her win." And between their sobs and whispered apologies, Sophie began to feel something return, a sense of safety, the quiet beginning of healing. Because even in a world of cruelty, love and understanding could still mend what had been broken. Several days passed since Sophie and Clara reconciled. Though their home remained quieter than usual, Sophie could feel the change. The tenderness had returned. Her mother now looked at her with restored trust. She embraced her when she came home, helped her quietly, and listened more, but peace did not last long. One afternoon, while Clara was organizing the pantry in the kitchen, Vanessa barged in. No greeting, no respect, just a fire in her chest. "Clara," Vanessa snapped, her voice condescending, "I assume you've already talked to your daughter about her indecency. You're not going to ignore what I told you, are you?" Clara slowly straightened, calmly closed the cabinet, and turned to face her. "You know, Vanessa," Clara began, her tone calm but firm. "I only needed to ask my daughter once, and the truth was clear in her eyes. She's not indecent. She's not the kind of girl you're accusing her of being." Vanessa's expression shifted. Her eyes darkened. "So, now I'm the liar?" "I'm not calling you a liar, ma'am. I'm saying I won't make the same mistake again. Sophie is my daughter, and I know her. If she did something wrong, I wouldn't excuse her, but in this case, you're the one who's wrong for slandering her with baseless accusations." Vanessa's temper snapped, her voice rose, and she stepped closer, pointing a finger inches from Clara's face. "You have no right to raise your voice at me," Vanessa screamed. "You're just the help here." Unable to contain her anger anymore, Clara shoved her back. "Learn to respect your elders." Vanessa stumbled but didn't fall. She turned sharply, only to find someone standing at the end of the hallway. It was Ethan. He was walking toward them with measured steps. Quick to react, Vanessa began rubbing her arm and blinked her eyes dramatically, as if she were holding back tears. "Ethan," she began in a shaking voice, "she hit me. I only gave her a simple instruction, and she slapped me. I don't even know what I did wrong." She sniffled and looked at him with wide, wounded eyes, like an actress reaching for sympathy. Ethan turned his gaze to Clara. His expression was cold, unreadable. His stance didn't change. Clara stood her ground. Her hands were clenched at her sides, her posture straight despite the fire burning inside her. She remained composed. Ethan turned back to Vanessa, gave a small nod, and said quietly, "Calm down, Vanessa. We'll handle this properly." He didn't scold Clara. He didn't rush to comfort Vanessa. But her silence weighed heavier than any words. That silence didn't comfort either of them. It made everything more uncertain. From that day forward, Vanessa became even more cunning and insulting, especially toward Clara. Where once she hid her disdain in sugar-coated words, now she wielded it openly. Each time she visited the mansion, she walked in with fire in her hands, and more often than not, that fire was aimed straight at Clara. "You're just the maid here in this mansion," Vanessa said one morning with biting sarcasm dripping from her voice as Clara busied herself in the kitchen preparing breakfast. "You should know your place. You shouldn't be attracting attention." Clara didn't respond. She was used to such words. She had heard countless judgmental tones her entire whole life, been the target of haughty insults and condescending glares. "You shouldn't be defending your daughter either, especially not when you're talking to me, especially not when you're just the help," Vanessa continued, eyeing Clara sharply as she placed a cup of coffee on a tray.